Good evening, I'm Korina Sanchez-Roxas, sitting in for Miss Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. The Marcos administration ordered to return 60 billion pesos in PhilHealth funds that were transferred to the National Treasury last year. In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court declared the transfer void, saying it was carried out with grave abuse of discretion. For a former lawmaker who questioned the government's move even before the High Court, the ruling is a victory for the right to health. Let's get on point with former Congressman and Bayan Muna Chairperson, Neri Colmenares. Magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Magandang gabi, Ms. Korina. Thank you.
So, Kong Neri, okay. This is a victory for you.
Yes.
And, of course, a lot of people say, people who supported your advocacy and your moves with the Supreme Court, a victory for health,
yes,
especially for the poorer of us. But is there any other problem that we're facing now because of this decision?
Well, it was a victory for the Filipino people in a sense. There were three petitioners there, Senator Coco Pimentel, and then us in Bayan Muna, and then isang Bayan with Justice Carpio. So it was a victory in that sense. Well, the right to health, for example, was a major part of the decision for us because the court said that while the Constitution says that the state shall endeavor towards accessible health services and goods, you cannot take the other way. Of course, you cannot say that we'll succeed there tomorrow. It is a process towards it, but you must go towards it, not on the other way. And the PhilHealth issue was the other direction.
So meaning it went around the law?
Yes, in that sense. So, yeah, so now that the Supreme Court has decided, we hope that it will not be repeated. Because what happened there was this. They had a lot of what we call pork barrel projects all over the budget, and then they ran out of funds. It was 281 billion when the President submitted the budget. It was 281 billion as approved by the House. It was 281 billion as approved by the Senate. And then the bicam committee comes in, and the 281 billion ballooned to like 741 billion. That's bloated,
crazy.
Yes, very crazy. That's why they then realized.
Okay, 700 plus billion without knowing where to get the funds from.
Without knowing, you're right there, Ms. Korina. Yeah, well, and then they thought somebody had a bright idea. Let's go for the GOCCs. They have unutilized funds. So they targeted PhilHealth, they targeted PDIC, Philippine Deposit Insurance Corporation, and I think, just my own opinion, if the petitions were not filed, they may have targeted other GOCCs like SSS or GSIS.
You mean they had not even gotten there?
They haven't gotten
Hanggang
there.
PDIC pa lang sila.
Hanggang
SSS.
PDIC, yes. 107 billion from PDIC,
okay, let's backtrack a bit,
from PhilHealth.
Kong, what do you think was the modus, if there ever was a modus, jumping from 281 to 780 plus billion, and knowing that this is the only money we have to allocate,
yes,
how did it balloon 500 billion more? You mean they probably knew that there were excess funds unused from the GOCs?
Well, that's what they thought. It's excess, but the Supreme Court said, no, it's not excess. In any case, there are two reasons there. The first is, there are so many projects being, inserted in the program appropriation. So what they did was they transferred this project, for example, a subway, you transfer it to the unprogrammed. But then there's still so many other pork barrel projects in the unprogrammed, and it ballooned to 741 billion.
Because I can't wrap my head around
Yes.
coming up with a budget of 500 billion pesos more, knowing that we don't have that money.
Yes, as if the BICAM knew something that the others didn't, because the President, the House, and the Senate all approved 281 billion. So they're saying, oh, we saw some projects that you didn't see. And they did it in 2 meetings.
And they also saw that there were excess funds from where they got it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so they targeted PhilHealth, and PhilHealth gave the funds. And so many were outraged because every time you're in hospital and you're going to ask PhilHealth for additional benefits, PhilHealth will say, walang pondo. And then, gulat tayo, ay wala, sabi niya wala kayong pondo, meron pala kayong 89 billion na pwedeng ipamigay sa mga kung ano-anong paboritong tulay o kung ano-anong mga paboritong projects dyan. So that's where the petition started from. The petitions, kasi tatlo yon, started from doon sa outrage ng mamamayan na kinunan ang PhilHealth na ang sabi nila wala naman palang pondo.
But it passed bicam.
It passed bicam and it
Yes.
passed the House and the
Yes.
Senate.
Yes.
That's why we are in our challenge to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court did not decide this particular issue for now. We said the Supreme Court has to rein in the bicam. Bicams must be transparent. Bicams, kasi secret ang bicam eh. Nobody really knows what's going on in there, who inserted what. Hanggang ngayon, the question nga is, where did this section, the voided section, come from? Whose bright idea was this? Hindi natin alam.
Exactly. I was asking you that earlier. Whose bright idea was that?
We don't really know for now for sure. But anyway, whoever thought of that, it was the entire BICAM, lahat ng pumirma ng BICAM were in on it in that sense.
So you mean all we can do is to wait for all these laws to be enacted and to properly present it to the Supreme Court if we have any hesitation or questions or opposition?
Yes, that's the problem because sana naman we don't, yung nagbabantay ka pa palagi, they should, shape up doon sa House and sa Senate at sa Malacanang. But no, the problem is ganito. So we have to go on petitioning and sometimes we win. But it's not easy. We have a lot of cases. Also, we filed several cases sa Supreme Court and even human rights cases sa baba. Yeah.
Okay, from the beginning, again, backtracking. What was the basis again of the Supreme Court saying that it was unlawful for Finance Secretary Ralph Recto to agree to allow the withdrawal of the excess funds of the PhilHealth to give to
what was voided
projects.
Actually, what was voided was the GAA, the law's provision. We call it as Section 1D to be just easy. Section 1D says that any fund, a reserve fund of GOCCs, you lower it to reasonable levels. So if, for example, a GOCC has 100 billion in reserve funds, the government, the Department of Finance, will lower it to, say, 60 billion. Once it's now 60 billion, then they will get the 40 billion. As they will say, oh, it's excess because they lowered the reserve fund. Excess na yung 40, therefore, pwede nang i-transfer sa program appropriation. So that was the first thing. And now, the second thing was the circular was issued by Secretary Recto on the basis, of course, of the voided provision. He issued, since the law says we can take that excess, quote-unquote, reserve fund, then, he issued a circular. But the Supreme Court said, no, the reserve fund, according to the law, must be, if you have excess of your reserve fund, whatever is excess of the reserve fund, you spend it for bigger or larger benefits, or you decrease the contribution, the premium contribution of members.
Correct.
So why are you putting it in like it was raised in the Supreme Court, the Panay Guimaras Negros Bridge? I think Justice Xavier said, but it's funded. The Koreans lent us already 147 billion pesos for that. So why
Did that actually happen?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, in the oral arguments. So you're going to fund another project which already has a loan. So all these things, the Supreme Court said that's wrong. The second is it's a rider in the GAA, because the GAA, the Supreme Court said, you only put in provisions that are related to it. But this special 1D is not germane to the GAA itself. Therefore, it's like a rider.
Right.
And,
okay. So now, Finance, the Department of Finance has to find a way to return.
Yes.
To return the entire amount.
Yes, well, Congress, because the Supreme Court ordered Congress, and of course, including Malacanang, fund for the 60 billion in the next GA, in the 2026. And some are saying, why should taxpayers again put in their money to refund what the government took from PhilHealth?
First, answer the question, where did it go?
That's correct. Actually, that's the first thing that should have been done. Where did it go? Can you account for it first? You're saying now, we don't have the funds anymore, so sagaan na lang kukunin.
Sa 2026 na lang kunin kasi na-allocate na namin.
Nagastos na eh. Saan pumunta? And we're going to, we want a full accounting from Malacanang and DBM for this.
Would you have to go to the Supreme Court again to ask for that accounting?
I hope not. Kasi it's dapat freedom of information yan. You spend our money, just account for it. Di ba? Napaka-normal ng isang tao na nagbinigyan kita ng pera para gastusin mo, saan yung resibo? Di ba?
Right.
So, I hope not, but we're going to write a letter asking them for the accounting of this, and I hope they'll be forthcoming in where it actually went.
So you were kind of complaining about the system within which you have to keep on looking over your shoulder what the bicam is doing.
Yes.
Talaga bang kailangan bantayan natin ang bantayan yan forever and ever? So I think, well, the question I would ask after that is, shouldn't the guy with the bright idea be answerable also to the Supreme Court? I mean, knowing what the law of the land says, why would they even suggest it?
Yes, we don't know who, because you see, the bicam has no transcripts. I mean, in our hearings, in congressional hearings, there are always transcripts and journals, but bicams, secret bicam nga tawag namin dyan. That's one of the demands, is to have the transcript. However, since we don't know who really suggested it, the fact is the entire bicam approved it. So, we don't need to find out ngayon kung sino talaga nagsimula niyan. Kailangan lang, kayo in-approve nyo lahat yun Bakit nyo kukunan ang GOCCs like PhilHealth ng pondo when para yan sa kalusugan ng tao? So, yeah, I guess that's the question now, the members of the bicam, and of course the House and the Senate, which approved it. I mean, everybody approved the bicam report. That's why we're challenging sana this system wherein the budget is certified urgent. So on second and third reading, in-approve mo ang second reading today, 30 minutes later, i-approve mo ang third reading, ni hindi mo alam kung ano aprubahan mo, so many insertions come in. So we're saying, next time, next budget, sana, pag second reading ng budget, where all the amendments are there, bigyan niyo muna kami ng kopya ng third reading, mga 3 days later, bago natin i-approve ang third reading. Kasi if you have insertions there, we will find out, di ba? But since hindi ganon, nag-bicam na, and then the bicam returned, and then ratified ratified kaagad, so nobody really knew what was inserted there and what was not.
Okay, so just so it doesn't happen again, is this the first time this ever happened?
No, the bicam has always been accused of so many things for so many years.
Kita mo, hindi namin nababantayan yan. But so that it doesn't happen anymore, shouldn't we be amending the law itself, allowing the bicam to be secretive and untransparent for transcripts to be made public?
That's a good question. The problem is, Korina, is this. There's no law that allows the bicam, the existence of the bicam. It's just a rule in both houses. Amorphous ito
What? They made it up?
Yeah, it's a made-up thing.
It's a
The
made-up
Constitution does not say anything about bicams. There's nothing in the Constitution. So, what we are demanding now
and to
is
think we've been saying bicam all these years, yung pala, inimbento lang nila
Yes,
yan.
nasa rules lang yan na, if there are disagreeing provisions in a bill between the Senate and the House, then the bicam will meet to settle it. What we're arguing in the Supreme Court, you only settle disagreeing provision. If it's 281 billion in the House and 281 billion in the Senate, there's no disagreeing provision. So why did you invent 741 billion?
And if they're in cahoots, because they all will earn from it,
correct.
So pasado na yan.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a short break. We'll continue our discussion with Bayan Muna Chairperson Neri Colmenares when we return. Stay tuned. This is On Point. Welcome back. Still with us, Bayan Muna Chairperson Neri Colmenares. So again, so that this doesn't keep happening, as you say it does, shouldn't be people made accountable.
Yes.
Yung mga tipong nagpapahirap sa lahat sa inyo ng kababantay, yung pala labag sa batas.
Yes.
Pero
Yeah.
kasi, para lang pumalinaw, hanggang hindi mo inihahain sa Korte Suprema, hindi sila magdedesisyon o makikialam.
That's the problem there.
Right.
So yeah, of course, lahat ng sangkot dapat managot is the first thing. However, since if we recognize that corruption is systemic, then the solution must be systemic also. It doesn't go away because you imprisoned, what, 2, 3, 4 senators or congressmen. So other than lahat ng sangkot dapat managot, dapat may systemic changes. Like yung budget kanina, make the bicam and the budget process transparent, participatory, and of course, accountable. Pass the anti-dynasty law. Pass the freedom of information law. Parang SALN labas lahat, di ba?
Okay.
All these systemic na na mga processes, and of course, put in officials with integrity and a government that really represents the voice of the people. All these are systemic changes.
Okay, other questions. Is Finance Secretary Ralph Recto liable?
There was a petition for that. No, isang bayan petition mentioned it. The court said, well, he may have acted in good faith. However, this is not the proper forum remedy for that. Meaning to say, you go to courts, you file a criminal case if you want to, but not in a petition in the Supreme Court. So,
But malice has to be established.
yes, it has to be established that there was bad faith on him. And of course, for those who yung na-divert na yung funds and then may irregularity sa tulay, like the one mentioned na may loan na pala, bakit yung pa pinondohan? Because I come from Panay, Negros. I come from there, and I haven't seen the bridge. Where is that? No,
Okay, so the other questions would be, where did that money go?
yes, and who's accountable there?
Who is accountable? And next, what is PhilHealth going to do with this new, this huge return of funding?
Well, I hope they put it to good use because, but actually, to be fair to PhilHealth, after the petitions and the oral arguments, they increased the benefits. The scope of coverage of their case rates,
They did?
They did. So medyo, pag pumunta tayo ngayon, lumaki ng konti. But that doesn't absolve them, at kulang pa yan, in fact.
Right.
Pero ang punto dito, it's not even big. Because dapat, ang health natin, dapat mga 5% ng GDP sana yung i-spend doon. Kasi kalusugan yan eh.
Pero
But
alam nyo,
it's
Congressman,
way below that.
Yes, I'm sure way below that because I just came from a forum. I have a regular forum with townspeople, barangay people,
Yeah.
and these people say that they don't get their benefits. First, the barangay never lets them know. PhilHealth does not have an effective communications campaign, information campaign, to
Yeah.
know that these people have benefits.
Yes.
And pag kumubra naman sila, ang sasabihin, walang sapat na pondo ang barangay.
Yes.
So what is PhilHealth doing with its funding?
Well, yun yung ayuda siguro yung sa barangay. Technically, the people just go to the hospital.
No, I'm talking about senior citizens, senior
Yes.
benefits,
Yes.
medications for the seniors.
Yes.
Oo.
Ayun. Yun ang problema sa budget if you give hundreds of billions naman for yung benefit na yan at dadaan sa kung sino-sino.
Yes.
Yung namimigay ng mga medical assistance, sabi ko nga, dapat ang pondo diretso sa tao, huwag nang sumabit pa sa bulsa ng mga politiko. Diretso na kaya sa ospital yan. Pag mahirap ka, libre gamot, libre pagamot. Hindi ka na kailang pumila kung kay Kong, kay Senador, or whoever na pipilahan mo because that's your money actually. Why should somebody dispense it at parang may utang ka pa na loob sa kanila?
I
diba?
agree.
Yes.
Dapat talaga may ganyan.
Yes.
Para hindi na dumadaan sa kamay ng iba pang mga like the
Yes.
barangay captains,
Yes,
the
correct.
congressman or the mayor.
Yes. So,
Right.
I guess that's a budget process, reform in the budget process altogether that must still be undertaken. And I think people should be aware now na after 2013, we need to be systemic here. Systemic ang solusyon. Okay lang nakasuhan nyo yan, okay lang naikulong nyo yan, pero we will continue struggling for reforms pag hindi nyo pinasa anti-dynasty law, yung
You're right.
freedom of information law, all these systemic changes na kailangan gawin.
Okay, so just to summarize, what are your next steps?
Well, ang next step is dalawa yun, accounting of where the 60 billion went and the total appropriations, unprogrammed appropriations, saan napunta yun. That's bigger, 741 billion yun. Ang second, of course, yung PDIC, tanong natin yan kasi affected yung ordinary depositors like us pag may bank run or hindi man natin
The PDIC, you say, is too quiet.
Uh, I hope they also stand up, but if not, then the depositors and the banks should probably say, because the banks pay for that,
Right.
the premium there. So, but in any case, whatever their position is, pagtingin naman natin tama na ilaban lang yon, di ilaban natin. So that's the second step there.
Okay, so, naku, marami pang ibang kailangan gawin doon. This
Correct.
systemic reform, you say,
Yes.
will probably have to follow all these questions in front of you.
I agree. Kailangan lang talaga ipagbawal yung corruption at least because that will discourage many dynasties from running. And many of those corrupt politicos from running kasi wala naman pala kaming kikitain
Correct.
dyan di ba?
Oo,
Why should I spend 100 million for an election? Wala pala
Hindi ko
akong
pala
kita doon.
mababawi.
Hindi mo mababawi. So, higpitan lang yung sa corruption. That's one solution dito.
What is okay, I'm going to change topics now very quickly before we
Yes.
end.
Yeah.
So what is causing the delay in the decision of the ICC on the issue of fitness for trial of former President Duterte?
Oh, it's delayed. The trial is delayed. And the main reason there is President Duterte keeps on filing motion after motion as if he doesn't want to go to trial, which is the reverse, Ms. Korina, because if you're innocent, you want your right to speedy trial. Bilisan natin to para, sorry, para labas na ako, di ba? Siya baliktad And I think the reason there is he knows if the trial ensues, he will have no evidence. Wala talaga siyang maipresent na evidence to show wala siyang kinalaman sa drug war or sa AJK. So, to delay the trial, he's now asking for, I'm not fit for trial anymore. May mga hindi ako maalaala kasi matanda na ako. And that's the issue now. So we're saying na...
But I read somewhere, is it not true that the medical experts studying the physical and mental fitness of the former president has already come up with their results?
Oh, that's the claim of the defense. But the prosecution is contesting that. In any case, the ICC has still redacted kasi yung mga we'll still have to see the results. But in any case, we're not yet on trial dito, Ms. Korina. There's no trial yet. So why are you claiming fitness for trial in a stage when there is no trial? Hintayin, huwag kaya nyo i-delay. Mag-trial na kaya tayo. Pag may trial na, tsaka nyo i-ration.
Baka may mga test talaga before trial that is standard.
No. In the Philippines, if you have trial, you have trial. You don't go and say, teka muna, bago tayo mag-trial, pa-test muna ako. Because it's not usually, parang lahat na lang ba na nagnakaw dito sa corruption na to? Wala silang kaso pag sinabi nilang, hindi ko na malala kung saan ko nilagay susi ko.
When he once on the stand, what if he pretends to be, with some kind of dementia?
It's up for the court to decide on that. I don't even think he will go to the stand because he will claim his right against self-incrimination. I don't know kung sinong witness niya. Pag nasa stand siya kasi, open game na siya sa prosecutors for cross-examination. So yeah, I don't know. But, ang hiningi lang ng biktima is this. Sana may trial. Ang hiningi lang naman sa trial, this is just a forum na malahad namin ng kwento kung paano walang awang pinatay ang aming kaanak. Ang anak ko, yung parents ko. Yun lang naman. Kung ma-acquit, wala tayong magawa. Kung ma-guilty, wala tayong magawa. They are wanting just a forum na lahad nila ebidensya nila against President Duterte.
Pero dito po sa issue ng kanyang temporary release, natuldukan na ba talaga yan?
Tuldok na yan. I think tuldok na yan kasi tingnan mo, if you're afraid, if you know that once trial ensues, you'll most likely get convicted, then the risk of flight is very high. Tatakas na lang ko, anyway, walang jurisdiction yan. Anyway, kinindap lang ako niyan. Hindi na ako babalik sa trial. So, that's, I think, one reason why the ICC denied it because of the flight risk of President Duterte.
Okay. I think you need a lot of vitamins. You have a lot of work ahead of you with all of this going on. Bayan muna, Chairperson Neri Colmenares, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you po.
And that's On Point. Join us again tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. I'm Korina Sanchez-Roxas sitting in for Miss Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.